Hello, everybody. This is Sly Badicic, the CEO and the co-founder of PhotoIn Mobile Corporation. Thank you very much for joining us for the webinar. Today, we'll be talking about basically automating photo documentation in restoration, a little bit about the challenges, about the benefits, and we'll also cover a case study with ATI Restorations that where we have basically gone in and automated the whole process for them for more than 300 users and over 20,000 projects. I'm going to quickly share the screen and get the presentation set up. Please do ask any questions that you might have. There's a question pane to the right, and I'll go ahead and apologize in advance if I start navigating between screens. If you see some activity on the screen, don't think too much of it. So let's get going. As I said, we'll talk a little bit about generally the importance of photo documentation. I assume that most of the audience already gets a lot of this because you came to this webinar, so we'll still cover the main things and go into a little bit of the challenges, the technology solutions, including PhotoIn, and really try to answer any questions along the way. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Croatia, came to US as an exchange student, always wanted to build things, was really setting up for real estate development, hence doing all this concentration at University of Georgia MBA. I've worked with risk a lot in my career, ran a private equity real estate fund, and that's really where the idea of PhotoIn came about, because I was on the receiving end of a lot of photos that it was hard to get the context out. And then when we actually got into the process, we figured out that there's a lot more pain points, and really went after automating the whole process and really creating the value for all the users in the process, including the field office and IT. Let's basically get into it. So why solve for photo documentation? I wanted to share a few numbers that you can have with you as you go forward. Brain processes visuals 60,000 times faster than text. Basically, they've done research. Not only is a photo worth 1,000 words, it is just much easier to process a visual versus having to read some big text to understand what really is being communicated. And then when you look at the in a business sense, there's big cost, whether known or unknown to the business. There's big cost in times and resources in filing documentation, including the photos. One of the old Price Waterhouse Cooper study found that the average organization spends about $20 to or manage and file a document, and that an average US manager spends about 3 hours a week on just looking for lost docs or trying to find them or finding the right one. Besides these kind of efficiency plays and just the effectiveness of the visuals in terms of the construction and restoration industry, I wanted to call out some other examples that we've heard from our customers. So, for example, resolving disputes or warranty disputes. So as you complete your project down the line, you might actually get a dispute where somebody's claiming that something was not done right, and having a good photo documentation that's easily referenceable and has all the information with the visual can help resolve those situations. So one of our customers talked about some time back getting a lawsuit that was worth $800,000, and on that particular project, the project manager was pretty good about documenting everything, so they got out of it, which was one of the reasons why they went out to find a solution that will enable them to do this across many projects and many users. Another customer leveraged the PhotoIn photo documentation and saved $4,000 on just one instance where the client was disputing the quality. They had the photos easily found. It showed that they've done their work appropriately and they didn't have to pay a fine. So very important to have the visuals. It gets done already and definitely needs to be looked at more in terms of how to solve for it. Another reason, so not just in terms of internal efficiencies and helping the internal communication, just to call out all the use cases and applicability of photo documentation. Wanted to definitely call out that in restoration, obviously the government and the insurance company and the commercial clients carry a lot of the market, and all three of them want to get the photos before, after, during, and really have the visual communication and reporting going on so that they can monitor the progress on site. And then when you really look at all the specific pieces where you end up capturing photos, estimating, documenting conditions, contents, thermal imaging, this reporting progress that we talked about. Then as you are just internally controlling quality, safety, requests for information, punch list, and then down the line as you are wanting to be a covered business, basically have all your documentation for legal purposes as well. Another reason to look at a holistic solution, end-to-end solution to be able to meet the requirements of all these different case studies. And then I wanted to add also in the end, after all this and after you collect all this photo documentation, it can come very handy for analytics and planning. Basically identify, look at the severity of issues, identify what kind of issues happen mostly on which projects, and kind of help you have visual support as you plan next steps in your business. How about benefits? So let's talk a little bit about the benefits of good photo documentation in restoration. Obviously, in terms of leveraging the photos to estimate, the better, the more accurately you capture the conditions, the more accurately you'll be able to estimate and really provide a good quote, appropriate quote, so that you actually end up making money. So think about all those times where you maybe had to do a change order, or you did some extra work that you were not necessarily paid for because it was not caught on the front. So better estimating can basically increase the revenues. Having and providing the photo documentation to clients can be leveraged in sales, which can help you win incremental business and again increase the revenue. And as we talked about, resolving these disputes can help you save money and again have an impact on the bottom line. Talking about down the stream type of thing, as you're working with the insurance company, as you're working with legal entities, much easier to do audits to ensure the compliance to the processes that you have established, and then even to process the claims. Most of the insurance companies have a limitation, a minimum time in which the photo documentation needs to be provided to the company. Then obviously quality and safety, we talked a little bit about that. With visual communication, you can speed up, and automation, you can speed up collaboration on defects and issues in the field. If you have that visual documentation of what's behind the wall, reduces the likelihood of having to do teardowns and redoing work. And then in terms of just the communication, you can avoid a lot of back and forth and really spending days on things that can maybe be figured out in a few minutes if you can provide a relevant visual. In terms of safety, a lot of our customers use it educationally, but mostly accountability. When the workers know that there's going to be a visual evidence of what goes out on site, they're more likely to actually act in an accountable way and make sure that they're following all the safety rules and regulations. And to the extent that you go down that path of leveraging for documentation and you use it for safety, this can help avoid injuries and medical costs, and in that way, again, impacting the bottom line. Take a quick break here before we start talking about the process itself that we see. I just want to see if there's any specific questions that we can address. And obviously, feel free to keep them coming, and maybe I'll punt on a few of them to address them at a more appropriate time during the presentation. But right now, I'll just keep on going. So as we got into looking at what people do with photos and how they actually achieve the purpose of capturing and saving and archiving the photo documentation, really the kind of perspective that I had when I was starting PhotoIn, we actually figured out that there's a lot of problems. It's not just about finding the photo or having the context, but the process itself is very inefficient and cumbersome. So in the field, we still, even after so many years of mobile devices being out there, we still see fragmented capture of information and photos themselves. Even if the phones are being used besides the digital cameras and paper and pen for taking down notes, even the smartphones are being used, we still see a lot of manual filing and organization, cables, download all of it, create folders, name the photos, a lot of manual stuff going on that really distracts all of the users from their core value added jobs that they have for the business. And even if you do and go through all this at the end, generally you get a bunch of random get images with a bunch of random names, IMG, and then some letters and numbers. Information is separate from the photos. Creating reports and putting all that together takes way more time than it really needs to. So this is really how we define our problem that we are solving. So not just capturing the photo and putting it somewhere, but really also increasing the actionability of the photos. So as you look at this and you say, okay, I definitely need to find a better solution to do my photo documentation, then we need to, or at least quickly kind of do an overview of what are the key things to consider before you're picking your solution. And this is, again, based on our experience, a lot of stuff out there, if you will, and we've had customers that have tried to use consumer-oriented photo solutions, let's say like Google Photos, and really quickly they figure out it doesn't really meet their needs because, again, on a business scale, you need more control, more configurability to adjust it to your process, and then all that other information that's relevant for the business doesn't really come with that. So what really am I using that example for is you have to understand why you're capturing the photos and what needs to be photo documented. So do you do everything? Do you do just some phases? Do you want to have a lot of ad hoc photos or only for specific purposes? That can help drive your choice of the solution. And never forget that people are the ones that take photos, and as we talked about on the whole process is really people all over the place that basically their needs need to be considered. So you need to basically tell yourself whether it's field techs, whether it's engineers, superintendents, project managers, who all should be taking photos. And again, talking about number one, for what purpose and how. To make sure that all this really works out and that the solution that gets picked actually has a chance to create all those benefits that we discussed, organizational support is extremely important. So basically, whatever the process is, how does it fit with the other workflows, how will be monitored and managed, and who will basically make sure, at least in the beginning, that everybody understands what's going on so that you can get that good start and continue to get value from a good photo documentation solution. And then in today's world, pretty much everything is getting solved with technology. So as you look at your solution, basically your solution can be, well, I'll just get somebody else to do photo documentation for me. We hear from customers that that's very expensive, so they're looking for solutions that they can do it with, and we're talking about mobile and cloud technologies. Then really based on 1, 2, 3, you can define your criteria and go ahead and look into the market, what is the best solution, and then how will you actually buy it, and how will you go through the process of confirming that all your requirements are met. It might sound a little complicated, but really all I'm making a point here is do it in an organized fashion, understand what you're doing, how you're doing, you'll end up making a much better decision. So let's look at what basically to look for in picking a technology solution. Obviously, we're a technology company. We provide one of the solutions for automating photo documentation. So we've heard a lot about what basically customers are looking for, and wanted to share some of those key criteria, what to look for when picking a solution. So obviously, it has to be simple and easy to use. A lot of legacy softwares are just too cumbersome, which impacts the performance, but it also impacts the user experience. So if you're going to do something and your manual old way takes 10 minutes, the technology should make it be easier and faster, rather actually than taking more time, because you have to click on a million different things and enter a million different pieces of information for each of the photo. So you want it to be very simple and easy to use. You want it to be mobile, not necessarily web-based, basically because you might be in an area where there is no good connection and you don't want to be prevented from actually completing your work. So you want mobile solutions that works offline without internet, and then you want to get the data together with the photos versus separately. Because again, it's a business context. Just having a random photo doesn't really get you far. So adding data and having the context of that photo very important. And then obviously you want to deploy it as fast as possible. So you don't want to have to do this whole elaborate, extensive training. So the solution should be really intuitive and again, simple and easy to use. A lot of the stuff that I talked about, wanted to call it out in a different way, the whole idea of efficiency versus laborious. You want to make things easier, and in that way, that's where we are basically going down the automation path. So you're not wasting time, you don't distract from the core work that people are doing, and you kind of take away those many manual step and data entry points to basically encourage adoption and to really show to people how much easier it is than the old way. And then I wanted to add the flexibility and configurability, so that basically as your process changes, you don't really want to spend a ton of time along the way making sure that the solution follows that, or you're doing some custom development. You want a solution that can really grow and develop and evolve together with you. And then, because again, we're talking about business, you want to make sure that you can manage the solution, that it's not like Google Photos without, let's say, a management console where the central IT or business management can actually manage how the solution gets used, how the photos are captured and leveraged across the system. One thing that's kind of sounds obvious, but it's not necessarily when we talk to the customers, is the idea that you can keyword search a photo. So we'll show you here how we do it with PhotoIn, but something that's really important that doesn't necessarily get thought about in the front, because you're really first talking about capturing, getting it to where it needs to go. But then, maybe a year down the line, you're searching across the project, you got 10,000 photos. How do you know which one is the right one? So filtering and having that data in the photo can turn to be very important. So consider that as well. And then do you actually get automated access to the data, basically talking about the application programming interface that can help you send the data where it needs to go into other systems through the integrations. And that's why also integration support can prove out to be very important. So all this together at the end has to work well with existing systems and workflows, because you don't want to really make this huge IT project over one of the processes. So when you're looking for the technology, consider how it will work with what you already have, and how flexible and configurable and open it actually is to your other systems. Let me take a quick break and see if there's any questions. I'll basically assume that if there's no questions, I'm really doing a good job on presenting. And maybe they'll come as we actually talk more about the solution. So let's talk about PhotoIn. So really, as you've seen that problem statement, the way we go about it is we have an easy to use mobile photo and info capture solution. I'll show you more here, but basically you can annotate on the photo, draw on the photo, capture comments within the photo, and we have an awesome smart tag system where basically you can set up the tags that should be available with photos, so you can just click them and not do a lot of manual data entry. We also have standardized capture templates that enable you to kind of guide the field user as to what information and photos should be captured. We name the photo, we take all the information that's been captured and actually embed it into the photo, including the GPS, date, timestamp, address, user information, project information, etc. And yet it is really easy to use for the mobile use. Automation key, as we talked about. So with PhotoIn, the filing and the organization is automated. Basically, the software does everything from the point of capturing the photo. It really works with customers' existing systems. Here's a few of these cloud providers, including in-house servers. We basically have an off-the-shelf connectors that can talk to these providers and really put the photo files in their ending the destination, basically the right folder. And I'll show you also how you can configure that and really make the overall system work for you. And then you get these visuals that actually have the annotations and all the information together with them, which makes them more actionable. And then this data is also available through the Open API and as a keyword search tool to find the right photos that you're looking for. So in terms of working with existing systems and being flexible and configurable, just to call out some other connectors that we already have and are developing, and the idea that we have this web-based admin tool for configuration. Over the past few months, especially, I've been to a few of these restoration events and actually wanted to mention some of the things that I've heard and people that I've met that talk about the automation as a great way to increase efficiency, productivity, and impact your bottom line. So the Orlando RIA conference, Chris Wisnowski talked about technology giving up to 25% of EBITDA gains and explicitly calling out automating field documentation, field photo documentation as one way to do that. And then Phil Rosebrook, I think most of you know him and Business Mentors. In one of his papers, he wrote that understand that a 5% increase in production efficiency can actually double your net profit, and that's really when you look at the P&L math and just really how much it takes you to get the same output. So basically, saving and getting more efficient and more productive can increase the bottom line. So let's talk about a little bit about the ATI. So for ATI Restoration, 200 field technicians, over 20,000 active projects, 150 PM, supers, and PEs, really different audiences. They also have office coordinators taking and using photos across the board. Used to use the Google Photos, but also digital cameras and paper to capture notes. They would take a photo of the work order, capture notes by pen and paper, and then in the office have a office coordinator that would manually access each one of their accounts, figure out where what needs to go, and then do save as for thousands of photos every single day and along the way. And then on the back end, they still just had a bunch of images that finding the right ones, even within the project folder, it was difficult to figure out what was what and how to best use it. This is when they figured out all this and kind of laid out their requirements. That's when we connected and really helped ATI fully automate the whole process, including leveraging their storage provider, which is Ignite. So what happens with ATI? When an opportunity is created in Salesforce, which they use as their excuse me, is their CRM. As soon as the opportunity is created, it sends an API call through internet to our backend, where we create a project, set up a geofence for that project, and then when the devices walk in within that geofence based on GPS, the field technicians, all they have to do is snap and tag, and PhotoIn will assign to the correct project, again based on the geofence. And then based on identifying the project and getting the tags and having out of the box connectors, PhotoIn will automatically sync and file photos to the correct project folder in ATI's Ignite storage. And they also have Ignite and Salesforce connected, so they get this fully automated process end to end and a closed loop. And then also, since we deal with photo documentation and give the best in breed solutions, we have some other tools that they leverage. So there's this web portal where you can access all those photos, do the keyword search, and get really the photos together with the information. And we also have not only the web admin console, but also have a PhotoIn Studio, which works on a desktop that enables them to leverage that for emergency service jobs, which might not be initially set up with Salesforce. We can basically we automate refiling and reassigning photos where they need to go, and offer the coordinators the ability to access those photos and also send them to different locations through the desktop app. So at the end, a lot of pieces, but really what the users in the field see is just snapping a photo and then maybe adding annotations and tags. Everything else happens automatically, and every user group basically has their own solution that was developed exactly for them. So let me now see if there's any additional questions. I'll take this one. So the question on other systems, yes, it does not have to be Ignite. It can be your in-house storage. It can be any other system that runs some workflows for you. Exactware, PSA, other CRM solutions. That's the whole idea of having the open API and having built a solution to be open and talk to other systems. As we would talk to a customer, we would really identify what are all the pieces that we need to cover, and then really approach it. So yes, other systems, including storage and other work systems, are supported with PhotoIn. And yes, the data can come in just like it goes out. So they call that the push and pull data API. We can do both. Any other ones? Okay, so in terms of the admin console, you can manage users, you can build your own tags. I'll show, maybe that's the best thing, is just to go ahead and show you a little bit more, and then we'll come back here and expand on the whole process. So here's an example of how it works from a phone. As you snap a photo, it will know what project you're on. If there's multiple projects in the same location, which can happen in restoration especially, you will actually get an automated prompt by PhotoIn application. Hey, is it this one or the other one? You pick, and it goes by proximity here on the nearby project. You pick your project, PhotoIn remembers it. Unless you move far enough to go into another project, we'll know where you are. Then when you actually snap a photo, you end up in the edit mode. There's some other functionality in terms of continuous shoot mode versus reviewing and annotating each photo after its capture. But really all this takes less than a second. As soon as you snap a photo, you select the project if you're prompted. If not, basically means PhotoIn already knows what project it's on. And then we can also have required tags, but basically then you can tag the photo either by purpose, by location. Anywhere you tap on the photo, you can add annotations. And all this information together with project info, etc., is actually embedded in the photo. So really it travels together with the photo as data in a context that you can get. And then you have this template capture template that basically where you can standardize how it will be how the field user should actually go through maybe an inspection. Inspections mostly use these templates where the real kind of estimating photos, just basically the technicians end up using just the photo functionality. And let me really quickly change what I'm here. Okay, let me show you. This was prepared a little bit earlier, but now I got to start it all over again. Let me show you the solution in action, actually. So here right now, you're seeing my iPad. I'm going to click the icon down here. Notice how it automatically goes into the camera mode for me to take pictures. Because I have multiple projects set up here, it asks me to confirm. I click save, and I can start snapping photos. I get my automated or required the independent tags that I need to select. Let me add safety as well. I can remember these selections to apply for the next photo, and why don't I do that? Show you how that works. And then for this next photo, I'm going to say I want to actually edit the photo right after taking it. So you take the photo, you come back here to the edit mode, you can tap anywhere on the photo and start adding your annotations, or you can do comments. And by the way, you can also use speech to text. So you don't really have to type. And notice that the tags are already applied because I remember them at the initial capture. And then to show you really quickly the gallery, you can filter. So filter is down here. You can see it on a map. There we are. Do a list, or you can do select and then tag multiple photos, email them, delete them, whatever you need to do. From this point forward, I don't really have to do anything. Notice that the automated sync came up by itself. It's already done. And now I'll show you. It's not the one. It's not the one. I will show you how it looks. That's the one. How it looks on the web. So here's our web portal, and I'll show you really quickly how the projects basically get geofenced by when the map comes up using a lot of. You can even change the radius depending on the size of the project. This can happen automatically from the CRM. All the tags that I've built are right here. You can make them dependent, and it's really easy to create new category and then make it require multiple selection just by adding it here. And then my filing hierarchy is set up here. I do it like this just for the demo. All these are fixed folders that already exist in my SharePoint, and then the project is a variable that based on the name of the project, it's actually going to file everything. And then also wanted to show you that you can even use tags to do your organization. We also have forms, and let me show you here. Here's the photos, and here's the photo that we just took today together. Notice the time, the date. Here's my annotation, and I can actually even show you real quickly how the keyword search works. So here's all my photos with a chair in it. I can also filter by tags, by date, really easy to do. And then, okay, it looks like I didn't do the SharePoint. So let me show you how this looks in SharePoint. So I've set it up to go demo. Actually, let me remind you of that. And sorry if I'm switching too many screens, but here's the filing hierarchy that I've set up. Demos, demo, any parent folder, automated configurable hierarchy. So here's demos, demo, any parent folder, automated configurable hierarchy, restoration job that we did together, photos underneath there, and it should be down here on the bottom. So here's the photo that we took together. So it basically happens automatically from the mobile devices straight into the correct location. Well, let's go back. Oop. There we go. So sorry about this. Let's go back to where we were and kind of just refresh. So basically, I've shown you a SharePoint connector, how the mobile app works, automated filing, access, easy keyword search, full configurability. And Billy now wanted to, actually I should basically see if there's any other questions. Right? Why don't we do this? Anybody who ends up being interested to find out more about PhotoIn, obviously there's the website, but we would love to talk to you. Just contact me, sly@fotoin.com, and we can take it from there. And we will have some time for questions if there's any up to the end of this. So, but let's talk about some other things that you should consider from a photo documentation and automated photo documentation perspective. There's other technology out there, and as you see here, we integrate with a bunch of cloud solutions. So consider cloud technology. If you're sharing a lot, you want anytime access anywhere, you want more security, make sure that somebody else is worrying about the uptime and any special requirements that you have, and then that flexibility and configurability of leveraging multiple solutions together. Cloud-based solutions tend to be very flexible. Definitely something for everybody who's looking for technology solutions today, something to consider. On the mobile, you have these Apple versus Android dilemma, if you will. Okay, yeah, question. So I don't really how about I was asked if which one I think works better. So I'm going to say it to you this way. You saw me demo with iPad. I have an Android phone. I have a Mac computer that's a split, so it also runs Windows. So I try to cover it all, and really don't make a preference from a business perspective. We got to work with all of the above. Also consider, so another thing that I've definitely experienced is that when businesses buy devices for their employees, price ends up playing a big role. Well, here's a different perspective, or the other side of the medal. Consider the quality of the GPS chip, how much space, how much battery processing memory you're giving the user, because the more they are expected to do on the phone, the more of the power of the device they actually need. So definitely consider what the devices are going to be used for before you pick which one, and consider the chips, the storage space, the battery, the processing power, and then do they support any other functions? So not just as devices, but also other technology in terms of scanning the image, scanning the documents to turn them into an image, capturing signatures. As we were talking earlier, whatever it is that you and your requirements are, so that you can meet them, consider that in advance, and consider that there's other mobile technology that can help you with that. And then when you're talking about photos, and again, just calling out some things that are perfectly natural and logical. You should do a lot of thermal imaging just to figure out the moisture and to make sure that you're covering that in your estimate, and that you have the proof, especially if you're working on mitigating that and like resolving the issue. Have the before and after photos, but thermal images are not a regular image, so you got to consider that. There, maybe it's a good combination of cloud, mobile, and photo. If you heard that FLIR came out with a FLIR One, which is like an extender for the iPhone that you just basically plug it down there, and you can take thermal images with your iPhone. Consider the image quality, basically the pixels on the cameras. Depending on what you use it for, you might care or you might not. Depending on the quality of image, you also need to consider the file sizes. So basically, when it's going to be too much, how will you manage the storage? Again, some things to just consider as you're making your decision. And then you want to get to that data that might be captured with the photo so that you can use it for verification. So, we've encountered customers that say, well, we don't want them to use location services. Pretty much everything on the phone now runs off of location services. The cool thing is that the providers have offered settings where you can turn it off for specific apps. So you can actually manage what app can use what functionality of the device. Which brings another great point is consider device management as a need as well. So for our customers, which obviously take a lot of photos, we'll get, well, okay, now I have too many photos, I got to take them off, but I still need them, using a lot of battery and processing power because of the location. Then we tell them, okay, why don't we look into your settings, because they're usually in setting there is some kind of app management, and it ends up that like Facebook is using 35% of the battery, that maps are using the location services, all things that can be adjusted and figured out. But that's a whole separate kind of world of mobile device management. For example, in my Android device, I use a Clean Master, and an app which is free and it does pretty well. So on most of the times, I delete about 750 megabytes of trash a day, and I just do it with one click because I have that app. Any other questions? And yes, this is definitely something where the conversation you can have a whole webinar on each one of these, and probably on sub bullet points as well. So take this as just a high level coverage, and then if you want to talk more, again, feel free to contact me or to reach out to us at support at PhotoIn, and we'd be more than glad to discuss more. And I'll slowly start rounding up so we have some time for questions at the end. So key takeaways from today. Photo documentation, extremely important in restoration. It already gets done. It gets required by the clients. It impacts the bottom line directly. If used properly, should be managed across the organization. You definitely want to have executive support for them to understand how important and relevant it is. It will help you pick a better solution and really solve the problem appropriately. And then think of it that the photo documentation should be part of the culture versus just one of the processes. It's sort of once employees get used to it, like to take photos of everything and anything like they do in their personal lives, all of a sudden it becomes a normal thing to do that you do all the time, and it gets easier and easier because the employees buy into it. Automation brings many benefits of photo documentation to bear, and in itself is actually a value added. It adds value by improving field to office communication, increasing efficiency, productivity, client satisfaction, opens up new revenue opportunities, and at the end of the day, in a very easy way, you have visual evidence of everything that you've done. It makes it very easy to effectively resolve disputes. 2, garner these benefits and really get the value out of photo documentation that we all know is there. Be careful how you solve for it and how you pick technology solutions. Define objectives and needs, address all the stakeholders. So it's not just about the executives or the office personnel. If anything, it's mostly about the field users, because if they don't do it right, downstream effects are going to be limited. And from that standpoint, it has to be user-centric. It has to be easy to do, because if it's not, it just won't get done. Thank you again for joining us today. Now I'm going to stay here. Whoever has to go and doesn't have questions, I'm recording this and I'll share it with everybody and make it available for the general public. But I'll stay online for a little while longer to see if there's any questions that I can address. put a better slide on. Okay, some of you are saying that you're going to reach out later. That's absolutely fine. Again, sly@photoin.com. Feel free to hit me up directly, or info@photoin.com, support@photoin.com, sales@photoin.com. Somebody will get back to you. Thank you all very much again for joining us today, for your interest in the photo documentation, and we look forward to working with you as we continue to solve this problem and harness the power of photo documentation in business.